Who was the first Welshman to venture inland into China, thousands of miles inland? To get to that, we have to begin on the periphery, earlier, along the Chinese coast. English ships began appearing around Portuguese-held Macau by the 1620s, but we have no firm record of any Welshmen yet. However, when the East India Company began doing business in 1699, it was given legal right to trade in Guangzhou, not far inland from Tiangong, which you might know as Hong Kong. Welsh sailors in the East India Company were not uncommon. Some of them would have seen China. The first diplomatic mission to China took place in 1793 after the Lady Hughes affair, in which a few Chinese were accidentally killed following a salute. After this, the Qing court ruling China did not like Britain very much, as you could imagine, and unable to establish a diplomatic foothold in the profitable economy of the East to compete with its European rivals, the Portuguese in Macau, the Dutch in Taiwan, and the Spanish in the Philippines, the British Empire's privateers had little choice if they wanted to make money. They set up an illegal base of operations on Lingding Island between Hong Kong, Macau, and Guangzhou, and began smuggling in opium from India. Up to this point, we don't have any clear evidence of Welsh people being involved, but this provoked the First Opium War in 1839, which is another video, but it is why Hong Kong was given to Britain after we defeated the Qing. During that war, an 8-year-old Welsh boy named Griffith John was admitted into this church, here in Abertawe. By the age of 14, he would be delivering sermons in Welsh and English. His dream was to take his faith to Africa. He would go a bit further than that. During the First Opium War, the 18th Royal Irish Regiment did have some Welshmen in it, and a Welshman named Captain John Rees made the first accurate nautical maps of the Chinese coast, which helped Britain win the war. Captain John Rees made a fortune on the opium trade with Britain's victory and returned home to Wales, where he built Lexton Terrace in Dinbych y Pysgod with his profits. This late Georgian-style building is beautiful, one of the best in Wales. For young Griffith John, he was growing up in a religious political climate in which the struggle of the Chartists for democratic reforms and an imperialist Protestant evangelicism fused together. In this moment of history, some Welsh openly opposed the opium trade and foreign intervention, whilst the British Empire secured economic footholds in 5 major Chinese ports. One of them was Shanghai, which is important. In Mandarin Chinese, Shanghai means on the sea, on the ocean. Inland China remained largely unknown to the West, but Griffith John was about to change that. This church in Abertawe shaped him in a way that would cause him to change China. My name is Benjamin Angwin, and I cannot control the music coming through the wall behind me, or the children banging with boards upon pipes, or the dog barking in the next yard over. But I can tell you what this video is about. I'm learning Chinese, Zhongwen, and I came across this guy Griffith John who spent over 50 years in China, and I was like, I have to tell you about this guy because he's from the same town where I live in. And I thought you guys would really enjoy that, so let's get into the video. In 1853, he went down to London, offering himself to the London Missionary Society, which sent people all over the world. He came back briefly to Abertawe and was ordained here, where he married his first wife, Margaret Jane. Almost immediately after the young couple were married, they set sail for China. Griffith John wanted to go to Madagascar. His heart was set on it. But there was a civil war in China under very unusual circumstances. A man named Hong Zichuan began having mystical visions in the year 1837 after a nervous breakdown, failing his exams for the imperial bureaucracy for the 3rd time. At first, Hong Jichuan thought he was speaking to Confucius, but when his cousin gave him Christian pamphlets in 1843, and he had another breakdown after failing examinations for the imperial bureaucracy for the fourth time, he declared himself as the little brother of Jesus. He also believed he had been commanded to rid the world of demons. But Christians outside of China at the time did not know this. All they knew in the 1850s was that a Christian rebellion had broken out, attempting to establish a new state, what is called Taiping Tianguo, or directly translated, Great Peace Heaven Kingdom, the Heavenly Kingdom of Great Peace. It was not very peaceful. 30 million died in this civil war, the bloodiest civil war in world history. But for our man Griffith John, Christians in the West had a brief moment where they thought China was about to become a Christian state. So from Griffith John's view, for the sake of saving souls, China held more opportunity at this very moment in the 1850s. He followed the advice of the London Missionary Society and went to Shanghai in the middle of this civil war. Griffith John arrived in Shanghai after a voyage of over 4 months. He arrived in Shanghai in late 1855 with his wife. He was clearly good with languages and is said to have begun preaching in Chinese within 9 months. Okay, I have to take a step back here. Learning Chinese good enough to preach in 9 months sounds a bit unrealistic. I'm learning Chinese and the writing system, the reading part, is difficult. And back then, he wouldn't have had pinyin, developed in the 1950s with a Latin script to help people learn Chinese faster. Anyway, from what I've learned about Chinese, being able to preach in it just within 9 months sounds a bit far-fetched. Maybe someone was teaching him Chinese on the voyage over. Maybe he was able to speak fairly okay Chinese at the end of that 9 months, but to be able to preach, I mean, you're going to need quite complicated abstract concepts on top of basic language enough to relate to the common man. So I don't think he was able to preach after 9 months. But that doesn't mean his accomplishment was not decent. Being able to speak Chinese at some level after 9 months to get by day to day, that's impressive. During his first 5 years in China, he undertook long journeys. This was very different to his English and Scottish counterparts. His style was a direct street preaching which reflected the revivalist attitude he grew up with in Wales. He traveled in boats along canals in the provinces of Jiangsu and Zhejiang. The opium trade was ramping up during this time, with Britons making fortunes off of flooding China with opium from India. Griffith wrote back to London, saying that this opium trade made Chinese hate the foreign religion, Christianity. His work against the opium trade would last decades, in fact, the rest of his life. His street preaching was also illegal, which nearly saw him lose his life more than once. A second opium war broke out in 1856 between Britain on one side, this time helped by the French Empire, the Russian Empire, and the American Republic, and on the other side, Qing China. Westerners like Griffith John were banned from venturing inland. He hid himself by night, or ventured out by night under cover, before returning to Shanghai. He traveled thousands of miles, reaching villages not yet mapped by Europeans in Wuhan, what is now Hubei province. The Treaty of Tianjin is the name for a series of treaties signed in 1858, which saw a brief peace during the Second Opium War. These treaties forced China to open up to Western markets. French, Russian, British, and Americans gained legal right to travel into China, at their own risk, mind, and the Qing was forbidden from discrimination against Christians. China was banned from using this character on the screen now. It means barbarian, but it's aimed specifically at non-Chinese, insinuating that anyone who is not Chinese is an inferior barbarian. Keep in mind, this was still in the middle of the bloodiest civil war in history, and the British would invade Beijing the next year. Griffith John was in the middle of a civil war within a trade war, as a missionary from the British Empire within an international alliance, preparing to invade China with further insurgencies in the southwest and the northwest. This was a crazy time in Chinese history. They have a few. The Civil War lasted from 1850 until 1864, with a Muslim insurgency in the southwest in Yunnan. See my video on the Panthay Rebellion, which lasted into the 1870s. This Welshman in China would have been exposed to many of these events. But keep in mind for later, this rebellion saw the Qing dynasty gain control by expressing nationalist sentiments. This was the mirror opposite of what happened at the beginning of the 20th century. Meanwhile, Griffith John was obsessed with the Yangtze River, or Changjiang, which he rightly saw as the natural highway into the middle of China. He began mapping this river. Europeans had not done this extensively yet. His goal at the time was to meet up with Taiping rebels in the hopes of establishing a Christian Chinese kingdom aligned with European powers. In 1860, after nearly 6 years of efforts, his work paid off. He traveled to Suzhou, a beautiful area of lakes and canals, popular with tourists today, to meet with Han Rengan, then Prime Minister of the Taiping. Griffith thought that Han Rengan would be an ally to the West. He was given a Taiping passport and allowed an interview with the rebel Prime Minister on his beliefs. Griffith John convinced the Prime Minister to agree on an edict of religious tolerance, and the Heavenly King, Hong Xichuan, would allow Christian missionaries like him from the West free travel through the lands of the Heavenly Kingdom held by the rebels. He also had the right to go and live and preach where he wished in rebel-held territory. Despite these diplomatic victories, Griffith John could not agree with the Taiping on religious grounds. Polygamy and corruption were widespread, as well as violence, not to mention the complex younger brother of Jesus issue, and the lands around him, ravaged by civil war. He had his own words to say on the matter. He said, "I have seen the Taiping in all their glory, and I am bound to say that they are not the men to save China." Notice how he uses the word save here. Griffith John's views and his social justice type way of seeing the world regarding the opium trade is, as you'll see later, quite evident, and it's quite Welsh, but it's the one part of Christianity, really, and Western culture that I've just never been able to understand. There's nothing righteous about saving another culture by turning it into you under the guise of universal values, when really it's just your values replacing theirs. So, I'm not really in touch with that, but it is a core part of Griffith John and who he was, and it's very, very Welsh. In 1861, Griffith John used the conditions of this special passport, issued by the Heavenly Kingdom, to set up a new base further west, at Hankou, the main port of Hubei province along the Yangtze River. This is an area of 3 cities, which have since merged to become Wuhan. His letters show a different mood after his meeting with the Taiping Prime Minister. He shifts his strategy and avoids internal Chinese politics, and makes a resolution to exploit his special permissions to further his Christian faith. So it is no coincidence that shortly after 1862, he won over his first Christian convert. He was very busy during the 1860s. The Taiping Rebellion was beginning to falter, and with the administration of the Qing court occupied, he could get away with doing more work and more missionary activity. He bought land. The 3 cities of Wuhan became his missionary hub. He set up the first Protestant church in central China in 1863. Around Hubei province, he set up a school and hospital. He created a hospital for what he called opium refugees. He was only just beginning his work. However, I have to note, not everyone in China liked these foreigners coming in and telling them about goodness and virtue. In 1861, a pamphlet was written attacking Griffith John and other Christians called 笔写集息, meaning records to ward off evil. He did not take this lying down. He began writing in an easier form of classical Chinese literary language, Wen Li, from around this time, though it would be another couple decades before he truly mastered this, which would make him prolific in translation later. During the early 1860s, he claimed to have established over 100 stations for missionaries. That sounds like a lot of work. Having built his base around Wuhan, in 1866 he decided to do something very bold. He began a 3,000-mile journey into and around central China. He entered the forbidden province of Hunan, which no Europeans had seen for 250 years, since the Jesuit era. In the city of Changsha, the local gentry attacked him for his insults to the ancient Confucian order, and began pelting him with stones and mud. Griffith John saved himself by speaking in eloquent classical Chinese, and quoting the Treaty of Tianjin, which gave him legal rights from the imperial court in Beijing. He made a survey of Hubei province in 1868, and mapped the area for the British consular service, which fed information back to British troops downriver in Shanghai and further south in Hong Kong. In 1868, he undertook his most ambitious journey yet. As I noted, he was fascinated by the Yangtze River, and so he traveled over 2,000 miles up the Yangtze River and nearby areas, reaching as far as the mountain-locked province of Sichuan. Along the way, he stood on temple steps and in open marketplaces and preached his gospel in the open air. By the end of 1869, he had built a network of stations stretching over 900 miles to assist missionaries after him. By this time, he must have missed home, and in 1870, after 15 years, he and his wife Margaret decided to move back home to Wales, to Abertawe, for 3 years to regain their health. If you are liking this video, let me know by liking the channel and subscribing and leaving me a comment or even a donation. Everything helps. Being from another country myself, having lived longer than 15 years here, I can imagine why he went home for a break. Still, he went back to the same church in Abertawe and began preaching at Ebenezer Chapel. But he was not idle. He toured Wales and England, giving public lectures about China, though this was probably a ruse. Ever the missionary, his real aim of coming back home was likely to gain a small flock of pioneers, to go back with him and do even more work. On the 8th of February 1873, he and his wife Margaret, with a small following, set sail from England for China. The journey was just over 2 months, as the Suez Canal was now open. His journey over 20 years before had taken over 4 months. Not only was the Suez Canal open, but British ships were now propelled by steam technology, Sadly, and despite this quicker voyage, his wife Margaret fell ill and died in Singapore along the way. He married his second wife, Janet Jenkins, a missionary widow, the next year in 1874. With his second wife supporting his work, Griffith John founded the Central China Tract Society in 1875, which evolved into a base of operations at Hankou for missionary work in central China. He was not only its founder but its first chairman, Chairman John. Bad joke. In the 1880s, his writing and translation work became prolific, and through the Central China Tract Society, Griffith John was able to distribute millions of Christian books and pamphlets. The authorities were not always happy with this, but due to the political weakness of the Qing, he was able to do so. In 1882, he began a massive project to translate the New Testament into Wenli, the literary classical style of Chinese, which he published in 1885. One thing that stands out about Griffith John's work is his decades-long campaign to end the opium trade. He joined the Society for the Suppression of the Opium Trade. He called opium a curse, and wrote tracts in Chinese, warning people of opium's harmful effects. Griffith John called this drug trade a moral sin upon the West. Writing to the Liberal Party in Britain, he wanted his Christian beliefs to shape the laws of the British Empire, something which he called moral law. John described the sallow face and wasted frame of the addict, arguing the drug destroyed the body given by one's ancestors, a rare appeal to Chinese beliefs perhaps. He spoke of family ruin, the weeping wife, the starving children, highlighting how opium led to the sale of property, and even family members sold into servitude to fund this habit. He called opium a chain of iron that bound the will, making it impossible for a man to fulfill his duty to heaven and country. What made this 1882 appeal unique, and perhaps distinctly Welsh, was that John used it to apologize for his own country's role. He wrote, "I am a Westerner, and I blush with shame that my country brings this poison to your shores. But while we fight the trade in London, you must fight the craving in your hearts." Now, personally, I don't like this type of Western self-hatred. We see so much of it today, but it is a part of Welsh culture today, and has its roots in Protestant Christianity, especially the nonconformist variety common to Wales, England, the Netherlands, and northern Germany. Griffith John was formed by this type of self-apologizing morality or way of seeing the world. It's just what he grew up in, it's not his fault. In 1889, he published a Mandarin Chinese version, not Wenli, of the New Testament. In recognition of his linguistic and humanitarian work, the University of Edinburgh went on to give him a Doctor of Divinity. Not bad. Through the 1890s, he continued translating the Old Testament, the Psalms, and Proverbs, sometimes into Chinese dialects. His Chinese was getting good enough to write in various dialects and local Chinese languages. He also founded the Griffith John Theological College in Hankou to train Chinese preachers within China itself. During the 1890s, he campaigned from China to influence the Liberal Party in Britain, and in 1906, he won his greatest win over the opium trade in the 1906 Anglo-Chinese Agreement, which was partially because of his efforts. Britain agreed to decrease opium exports by 10% each year, whilst China agreed to local bans on poppies. The goal was to end it altogether by 1917. And yet, within China itself, the political situation was changing. The civil wars of the 19th century were over, but the Qing dynasty, built on a 17th century bureaucracy, was beginning to lose control. In late 1899, a group called the Society of Righteous and Harmonious Fists, my Chinese is not good enough to say that yet, they spread across the plain of northern China, killing Christians and hunting down foreigners. 32,000 Chinese Christians were murdered, with 200 foreign missionary families hunted down. Thankfully, Griffith John was hundreds of miles away. A war followed which lasted almost 2 years, in which an 8-nation alliance of foreign nations defeated the rebels after the Qing court joined the foreigners against their own people. The rebels were known as Boxers, for many of them knowing martial arts. This must have been quite scary for Griffith John to be around, but he kept up his work and even converted people during this war. The year 1905 saw an armed uprising in Tibet, which spread southward into Yunnan. They attacked Christian missionaries, as well as killing Christian converts. A nationwide anti-American boycott happened as well. Just so you know that anti-American sentiment in China is not something invented recently, which would not have been cozy for Europeans like Griffith John. In addition to this, an underground resistance began against the Qing dynasty, who were seen as traitors by many for having changed sides during the Boxer Rebellion. Then Japan defeated Russia in war, as well as Qing forces in Korea, and began expanding its influence into Manchuria in the northwest, which caused a massive refugee migration into China, causing chaos and nationalism. For Griffith John, this was his missionary jubilee, marking 50 years since he had first come to China. He had seen a China move from isolation and civil war to one being slowly taken over by an alliance of foreign powers, provoking a nationalist backlash against his religious faith at the end of a crumbling dynasty and the slow disintegration of Chinese society into rival camps, of which he belonged to neither. To say his writing became bitter as China changed would be too far. He was a rather cheery fellow, but his work does reflect frustration, a tiredness, an encroaching understanding that China was changing without him. He wrote in letters back home, "I have not done what I expected to do. I have been a seeker after the best, and I have found it, but I have not always been able to give it to others as I wished. I can only say, as I have watched Wales and Welsh nationalism change over 2 decades, as an American of Jewish faith in Wales, that I have a similar feeling." Griffith John saw the splitting of Chinese society into rival camps to which neither he belonged. In Wales today, it feels like this is happening here. It is a strange thing for me to see something so similar in this man that is so specific. After this, his health began to fail him. He left for Wales and then returned to China in 1907. Winning over yet more converts to his faith. But in 1911, the nationalists launched a revolution. In the middle of this revolution, as the nationalists gained the upper hand in January of 1912, with his health getting worse, and no longer safe to be a Christian foreigner, he left China for the last time. Looking at Britain today, divide itself along similar lines, as rival mobs, nativist and Islamo-Marxists, both grow. I wonder if I will one day have to leave Wales, as Griffith John had to leave China.